Bloom is also very compassionate for the birds. He's always saying like poor that Stephen's sister and poor birds, poor this, poor that. He's always thinking about the plight of other people. So he buys the birds a little cake and he feeds them. Feed the birds! Stephen sees an advertisement and he thinks about a good place to put an advertisement would be in a urinal, like he calls it a greenhouse. So when men are peeing, they would see this ad, and he thinks about a good ad would be for men who have an STD. If they're feeling pain, they would see this ad for pills. But as he thinks about that, he thinks about what if Blazes Boylan has an STD, and what if he gives that to Molly? The way he thinks about it is this: if he, oh, eh? No, 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 I don't believe it. He wouldn't, surely. No, no. You might have to read that passage a few times to get it, because so much of it is below the surface, and anytime Boylan comes up, he wants to hide it and move away from it. And consider that he is still very considerate of Molly's safety and making sure that she does not get an STD. Another unique advertisement that we'll see is these guys who are walking around carrying these signs on them that say HELYS. So I think 5 people are being paid to walk around with these signs. It's for Wisdom Healy's, which is a printer and a stationery business that Bloom actually used to work for. This makes Bloom think of his earlier life and when he worked there, and he thinks happier then. He seems to associate it as a former time of his life when he was happier, and he refers to it as Lombard Street West. We were in Lombard Street West. If you see that come up, that just refers to where they used to live. I was curious where that used to be, and here it is on the map. Also notice how Bloom connects the river as he crosses it with the stream of life, because life is a stream. This is a key theme that is going to show up and be the impetus behind his next book, Finnegan's Wake, operating in the book's own syntax into ever-augmenting orbits. We go, we go. As Bloom is thinking about his past, he runs into a figure from his past, a woman named Mrs. Breen. Her maiden name, before she married her husband Dennis Breen, her maiden name was Josie Powell, or Josephine Powell. And you may not get that from this little conversation and Bloom's thoughts here, but later in the book, I think in Circe, we're going to see that they were actually, it's unclear what exactly, but some kind of, she was his girlfriend, or they were courting each other or something, but clearly they had more of a beyond a friend relationship, and only later did they marry separate people. Her husband now is a little dotty. He got a postcard in the mail that just said UP, and he doesn't know exactly what it means. He thinks somebody's playing with him and messing with him. So he takes the postcard and he's going to visit that guy that we saw in Hades, John Henry Menton, who's a lawyer, and he's gonna try to sue somebody, but how's he gonna sue him? He doesn't know who sent it, so it seems a little ridiculous that any kind of libel suit or whatever he hopes to do is gonna happen. But that's what Josie Powell or Mrs. Breen is waiting for her husband. He's seeing the lawyer. But what does this postcard even mean? Getting it that says UP. Well, there's a lot of different theories about it, what it means, and you can read about them, but I think the one that maybe makes the most sense, or at least to me makes the most sense, is from Charles Dickens in Oliver Twist. There's a line, "Oh," said the young man, turning his face towards the bed, as if he had previously quite forgotten the patient. "It's all UP there, Mrs. Carney." So that's my best guess, but we don't really know. It's one of the famous riddles of the book. But as he talks to Mrs. Breen, he notices that, he has a lot of things that he notices about her, but that she looks a lot older than Molly, even though she's not that much older, that her dress doesn't look that well, it looks pretty tattered, and that she just doesn't seem like she's getting on that well in life with her kind of loony husband. They also discuss this woman, Mrs. Purefoy, who has been in labor trying to give birth for 3 days. She's been in this maternity hospital, And actually the scene of that hospital is going to be the setting for a later chapter, The Oxen of the Sun. So we'll see that much later in the book. But she, Mrs. Purfoy, Bloom thinks of her, and he says Mrs. Beaufoy. He's thinking of that magazine that he read earlier in Calypso when he was reading the Matcham's story in the outhouse, and so he kind of confuses the names. Also, while they're talking, this guy comes up. His name's Cashel Boyle O'Connor Fitzmaurice Tisdall Farrell. What? That's a very long name, and why is Joyce including this guy? All we know about him is that Bloom says when he walks down the street, he walks on the outside of the lamppost, so I guess he walks pretty close to the edge of the sidewalk, and that makes him kind of notorious. Plus, he has a really long name. But why is Joyce including him? He's not a major character by any means, but he is something that you see in cities, these odd characters that are part of the landscape. And I think Joyce is always looking for ways to incorporate more of things as they actually are. So if this is a real figure in the landscape, every city has these features that are just unusual. Bloom leaves Mrs. Breen. He's considering where to get a bite to eat, and he has two kind of strange coincidences which are probably becoming a pattern in this book. He's thinking of some people, first that poet A.E., and then also Parnell, and he sees Parnell's brother, and then he sees A.E. on a bicycle with some woman, and he thinks that's very strange, but he explains it this way. Coming events cast their shadows before. I think this is, once again, just Bloom's outlook on life, his ideas about fate and destiny and, accepting them. As his mind wanders to thinking about the moon, he thinks of a time 2 weeks ago when he was walking with Molly and Blazes Boylan, and he noticed that he thinks their hands kind of brushed against each other or touched, and that was like the first sign that something might be about to happen between them. Wait, the full moon was the night we were Sunday fortnight. Exactly, there was a new moon. Walking down by the Tolka. The Tolka's the river. Not bad for a Fairview moon. She was humming. The young May moon, she's beaming. Love. He other side of her. Elbow, arm. He. Glowworm's lamp is gleaming. Love. Touch. Fingers. Asking. Answer. Yes. Stop. Stop. If it was, it was. Must.